Hello, and welcome to Lead, Learn, Connect, where we explore the worlds of training and coaching and powerful leadership. I'm your host, Alan Krieger, and on this show we talk about not just the how of helping others grow, but the behind-the-scenes work of overcoming challenges and staying connected to what's really important. My guest today is Tony Camacho, a training manager with Kitchell, based in Phoenix, Arizona. Kitchell is a general contractor construction company. Tony started training in the military, moved to a government agency, and now is in the corporate sector. He'll share with us some of the differences in that journey. Whether you're a new trainer, a seasoned facilitator, or just curious about what it really takes to thrive in this world, this episode is for you. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I appreciate you joining us. So let's start with that. You started out in the military, learned about training there, left that, moved into working with a government agency, and now in the corporate sector. What's some of the differences you've experienced in those contexts?
It's been very enlightening along that journey. There's my understanding of how training should take place and how you should develop that in the government, on the government side, is quite different than the way it actually is realized in corporate America. And a lot of that's got to do with resource allocation and just the enormity of these organizations that are there. So there is a challenge in that was a point where I had to relearn how to apply the skills that I was bringing forth from the military and actually make them work in corporate America. So there were it is it's the same, but it's different, and the mentality and how they accept it is different.
So in terms of how you design training in the government, military, it was a more thorough, organized process. In corporate, it's more get on the run and get it done.
Yes and no. So with the government or when you're in the public sector, there's time to do things the way that academia would teach you how to build curriculum. You have your groups and you have things that are going on where you're bringing in SMEs and you're gathering data and you're doing all those things in order to develop your curriculum out. The reality of that is that that's time away from productivity, whatever that job may be. And you may have to do that several times on the government side to get everything really focused down to where you want it so that then your curriculum developers can go out, crush all that information down, and then start to spit out some content. And then you go through that process again. What I found is that with corporate America, they don't have the time to pull people away that long. So your ability to gather data isn't done in the same way. And you have to make a lot of assumptions and then fix things as you move on. I can't bring individuals from a job team off their projects from around our area where we work and keep them for 3 days to go through information only to produce a 2 hour class. I have to keep them productive. So you have to be very strategic in the way that you go about getting that information from them and really understanding who the true core people are in the company that you can lean on in order to pull that information and accelerate that data gathering part of the event. The creation part happens all in my office with the team that I have working with me. And then we turn around and go back to them with an 85 or 90% product and say, tell us where we're missing the mark. Let's refine some stuff. But the base message is always there. So it's a little different in that way. And if you come into it expecting to be able to pull people out and sit in a conference room for 3 days, you're going to be extremely frustrated and extremely disappointed in your inability to accomplish something.
So how does that work out for you where you are working with very limited data? You've got your in-house team who are not experts in whatever it is that's going on out there. And then when you present it, are you 85 to 90% good, or do you get feedback that it really needs a lot of reworking?
It'll depend on it really depends on the area that you're working in. So there's a lot of smart, really intelligent people that work in construction, and they know how buildings go together. They understand the science of a building, and they'll share with you textbooks of data. The challenge with them is that you have to remind them, what is it that I really need the participant to know, and what do I want them to do with that when they leave this class? Because in their mind, they need to know it all at the same level and the
Right.
same understanding that they do. And so that's problematic for a newer employee. Obviously, they just don't have the experience to place what they're learning. In other ways, it is nuanced in that there could be three different ways to get to the same result. And because of that, it's not as simple as saying do A, do B, do C, because depending on different environmental circumstances, you have to answer that in the training. So there's best practices, there's policy and procedure, and somewhere in between in those nuanced instances, we try to get to the desired outcome.
And you and your team are not necessarily experts in some of the things you're teaching, and
Not
yet
at all.
you have to kind of deal with it in the moment. So what do you do first to come into the room and establish your credibility, or why are you here if you're not the expert in the room? And then what do you do when the technical questions start flying that are outside of your scope?
That's a really good question. And it was something that I experienced early when I started with Kitchell. I don't have a construction background. I can tear stuff apart, and usually all the parts don't go back together. I have screws left or pieces left, and it's not square. So that's just not me. And I had to realize very early because of that that I have to rely on on my SMEs to keep me grounded and teach me what it is I don't know. And I don't know a lot. And I would share that you don't have to know everything. You just have to have an understanding of how a building goes together so that when you're teaching a class on fire stopping, as an example, you also know how the rated assembly was built and how the detail is built, which are all pieces that lead to the actual installation of the fire stopping. I don't know, I have to know how to read it, but I have to have somebody around who can answer those questions if they come up in the classroom. So we will generally have two instructors teaching. I'll have one that's a true SME and another one that's more field oriented, watching the application of it. That way, regardless of where the question lies from the audience, we're able to answer that question and move them forward in a very powerful way that allows them to make that actionable when they leave our presence.
Okay. So you're a manager of trainers, and you've had trainers come through. What do you see are the biggest challenges or weaknesses that trainers have that you've had to kind of work with them to get them to be more effective?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was used to what a trainer was when I was in the military, and I was trained to facilitate. I was T3 and T4 or master trained. So there was this really rigorous requirement to call yourself a trainer, and you had to understand what you're trying to teach and why it's important. I found that in corporate America, there's a lot of different flavors of trainers. There's the trainer that trained at Taco Bell that is teaching, new employees how to roll a burrito, a simple task, but an important task for the business. And then there's other trainers that are writing curriculum and they never stand and deliver or they never interface with the actual SME. And that causes a huge disparity across what the expectation is versus what the output is in these folks. And I've had there's been three or four that just haven't made it. And unfortunately, some of it has to do with what they expect coming into the role, that not being clearly defined, but it's also they don't fit they're not able to communicate effectively with others and ask for what they need in a way that other people understand. Because with dealing with those SMEs that are really high experts, some are architects, some are engineers, they've got advanced degrees well above me. It's easy to offend them if you come at them the wrong way with the wrong approach. So your communication style and your ability to be adaptable and humble is really important. You can't come in demanding things because you're going to get nothing from them and never accomplish anything.
Okay, speaking of communication styles, you took the assessment, my team assessment, and as you've been evidencing through this conversation, you're very thoughtful and deliberative and step by step, which is the A or analyze style. And I imagine that works well with architects and engineers who tend to be in that same style. And maybe you're talking about some of the trainers coming in who are more the engager type, very talkative, very quick moving, and can really rub an engineer architect the wrong way. But let's flip it over. When you're in the classroom and you've got people out there who are, either really task oriented, but let's get it done quick, fast, give it to me, and you're trying to give them all the information. They just want the quick highlights. Or you've got people who are really into more of the interpersonal engagement, and you're trying to present some material. How do you adjust to reach a diverse group, and how do you advise your trainers to connect with the architects if they've got the wrong style? How do you help them kind of see what they need to do?
That one fact has been a challenge for me as I moved into the corporate side because in the public sector, you do what you're told. That's just the way it is. The rules are the rules and they're very defined. Getting the corporate side, it's a little more squishy because your outcomes are different. And personally, I have to constantly remind myself that if someone's asking me a question, it's not because they're asking it because they want to be a nuisance. It's because I don't know. There's something, right? So mentally, I play that game. It's like, okay, what is it that I didn't communicate clearly that I need to recommunicate? And what am I missing from that? There's always somebody who wants to, poke at you and have fun, but generally speaking, they're not asking the question for the sake of asking the question. So I have to slow myself down because I can be a very direct communicator through email or through text or just in conversation. I can give you the answer, tell you what you need to do based on policy and procedure, but that doesn't necessarily mean you understand the why. So I've had to present the why first instead of just the do, which is part of the military training. You just do what you're told and you move on, right? You question it later on. But here it's understand what you need to accomplish, the why of it, and then here's how I want you to do it to support the why. So that's been a big mental shift for me internally to work on and remember every time I go into a conversation. So I have to pause. I have to think about what I'm going to write or respond and then allow a proper response that facilitates them asking questions because I need them to ask questions.
Okay, so the why kind of sets the frame for people, gives them, hopefully engages them in some way of, oh, this is important. I can see where this can be helpful. I need to know this. And then they're more receptive to hear the details and
Definitely.
the facts. Okay.
Definitely. And with the younger employees, they need more of the why am I doing this? More tenured employees, you can just tell them what they need to do. This is the policy. This is why you need to name that file this way. As to where the younger employee, it's, I need you to do that because in the back, I'm running BI and I'm pulling information off that. And I need that data point to be accurate and consistent every time. So it's just, it's the same thing, but it's just doing it differently.
Okay. Um, so what got you started as in training? You were in the military. My guess is you didn't sign up to be a trainer when you walked in the door. How did that take place? And
Well, you're right. I did not. I signed up to be in the infantry and I got my dream. Somewhere in there, they asked me to teach one of the host nations with the Japanese Marines a class. Now, I don't speak Japanese, so we used a translator, but when I was going through that rehearsal, it was just something I had a knack for to stand in front of people and present and not go through those normal fears that people go through with public, with speaking in public. So that started it. And then as time went on, working with more host nations, that just continued. And I would then move into different roles within the Marine Corps where I was in a true instructor role, but teaching in the environment. So I was a ski instructor, I was a mountaineering instructor. So when you're doing that, you're not in a classroom with a bunch of chairs. You're in the environment on your skis, and you're taking every student through that. And I really like that. I liked that ability to learn something, master it, and then share that with others and help them master that same skill. And that would lead to other things that I would do. And then I ended up on recruiting duty later on in my career. And that in and of itself is nothing but teaching people how to talk about the Marine Corps, how to answer questions, how to communicate with moms and dads and teachers and professors in a way that doesn't offend them. So that was very useful in the corporate side, just understanding that, hey, I've got to change the way I communicate. And that's where I actually got into the true facilitation part of it, the curriculum development, the going through all those courses to truly understand what I had been exposed to up to that point. And I enjoy it. I enjoy sharing with people things that they need to know. But then the greatest part of that is watching their development as they go through their life cycle with Kitchell and seeing how much they're able to succeed. So it's really value add for me if or to see someone and know that I had a small part in helping them become successful.
So Kitchell's a fairly large organization, but do you get to kind of see somebody over time and see them develop? Can you stay in touch at that level?
Yes, definitely. The nice thing about Kitchell is that it's small. We're a mid-sized company, but we're small in the way that we have community. And so that helps. And those employees that I train in their first year will then come back for subsequent foundational training. And we interact all the time. And they don't hesitate to reach out. It's one of the greatest assets that I think I bring to the company is that there's an open line of communication. If an employee doesn't know something, they're more likely to ask me than try to, than ask their manager because they don't want to look dumb when they're younger. When they're
Yeah,
older, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Yeah, we're not going to get embarrassed. We just don't know. But when they're younger, having that place where you can come back and then get redirected to information is really valuable because it shows that people trust you. But more importantly, it keeps the information the same. And so your processes and your procedures are all that. And I would hope that every trainer has that experience where they're at.
yep. Okay, yeah, I'm a external trainer, independent, and so I often come in, do a bunch of stuff. People love it. We have a great time, and then off they go, and I may not see them ever again. And so that's one of the advantages I think of being a internal trainer is that you do have that continuity, that community, and it sounds like it really works in Kitchell. So that's a
Yeah.
great thing. So taking you back to when you were first doing your training outside the classroom, and then many years later now you're in the classroom. How has your style changed, or what changes? If you think back to your early Tony and modern Tony, how have things shifted?
Yeah, that I I go through this mental drill constantly because a lot of times my SMEs will be teaching and I'll be in the classroom with them and we'll have rehearsals and we'll go through the flow of the presentation, trying to keep them where they need to be time wise and don't go down a rabbit hole on this because then we won't cover everything. But I have to when I first started, I was really tidy as a facilitator, just spot on. I threw myself into my craft and just very, very tidy in the way that I was a facilitator. I've come to realize that on this side of the fence, that's not as important as the information that you're putting out. You can definitely detract from it, but you're not going to, everybody's going to learn something when we run a class here. Everybody will gain something from it. Even if the facilitator is just terrible, they'll still get it. The ums, the ahs, all that other stuff. I still try to maintain that. I go to Toastmasters every week. I still try to maintain my proficiency so that I can pass that along. But I've had to reassess my ability to create true facilitators within a company where that's not their primary job. Because I thought, being naive initially, yeah, I can make everybody better in everything. And I've had to re-level my expectations.
Okay. So we're just about out of time, but just a last question. Any other advice you would give to trainers coming up, things to think about, how to be more successful as a trainer in the corporate environment?
I, I would offer that one of the things that worked for me is when I was hired, they knew I didn't know anything as far as construction goes, and that my learning curve would be really steep initially. You can either use that as a crutch or you can use it to your advantage. I would, and if you're in that situation where you're going into an industry where you're not fully versed in what they do, the success that you have will be driven by the people that are going to feed you information. So find those really core people that are core to the business and have been around for a long time and pick their brains as you're going through things. But you have to do something as a trainer. You have to act. You have to have a work product that comes out. And if it takes a year to produce that, then it takes a year. But if it takes 6 months, it takes 6 months. You have to show that you're adding value initially in order for people to believe. And then the other part is consistency. You have to be consistent in what you offer and how you offer it so that people, just like turning on the TV every night, you expect it to come on and you expect your list of streaming channels to be there. The first time they're not, you're making a phone call. So if you've got something scheduled, you, for that consistency piece, people have to know that it's always going to be on and that you're always going to run on time, even if you have to change the course. Those two things have built a lot of trust for me, or it's been the way I've been able to build a lot of trust with the employee base. And now they understand what our cadence is and the frequency of the certain lines of information that we're teaching.
Okay, great place to end. Well, thanks, Tony. That's it for today's episode of Lead, Learn, and Connect. A huge thank you to Tony Camacho for sharing some great insights into his experience in the training world. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. You can find out more about Tony's work and how to get in touch in the show notes. And if you're ready to strengthen how you teach or coach communication, click the link to our website to learn more about the T.E.A.M model of communication and follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep connecting. Thanks for listening.